Chapter 405, Attracting Hatred. Again, translator, reverie, editor, Kurisu Linghan. No longer fashioned formation eyes. To carve formation patterns was to grind away an astonishing measure of soul power. Though he now stood at the late stage of the spiritual ocean tier, he still felt his soul power was insufficient to squander. He stepped out from the Black Tower, strolling as he continued to seek the whereabouts of the heavenly Luckstone. Only after his mental spirit had recovered in full did he set his hand once more to forging the second formation's eye. Thus, he spent a whole additional 7 days, and only then did he complete all 7 formation's eyes. At the same time, his cultivation also advanced to the peak stage of the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Perhaps tonight, or perhaps tomorrow, he would be able to break through. Originally, formation's eyes had to be refined with divine sense, imprinting one's own consciousness upon them before they could be used. However, these 7 formation's eyes had been carved by Linghan himself. During their creation, his will had already been left behind, and so he had no need to deliberately refine them a second time. He flicked his right hand and pa! 7 formation's eyes appeared one after another about him. Simultaneously, within his consciousness, 7 virtual images also arose, each corresponding to one of them. Down to the formation patterns, they were identical in every detail. Weng. Within his consciousness, the formation patterns upon every formation's eye began to glow. Each of the 105 formation patterns sent forth 104 beams of light, linking to the other formation patterns and weaving together into a wondrous network of veins. Hong. Around him, the 7 real formation's eyes were also activated at once. Just as within his consciousness, the formation patterns lit up, linked together, and formed a formation. The power of heaven and earth gathered, swiftly condensing into a spirit snake, snow-white from head to tail, exuding a shockingly imposing presence. In an instant, this spirit snake was fully formed. It stretched over 30 meters long, coiling in the sky above the formation like a divine dragon. With a single thought from Linghan, this spirit snake began to move perfectly under his command, obeying as he pleased. All of this was because, within his consciousness, there existed a small heavenly origin spirit snake formation that communicated with the 7 formation's eyes. Once the power of his divine sense was exhausted, this formation would either dissipate on its own, or the spirit snake would run wild and lose control. Fortunately, while branding formation patterns consumed a tremendous amount of divine sense, the expenditure to maintain a formation was far smaller. By Linghan's estimate, he was entirely capable of operating it for a whole day. Go! Linghan gave a light shout, and the snake spirit instantly surged up like a flood dragon, smashing through everything in its path, at times shattering great trees and boulders, at times coiling around him to form a defense. After exploring for half an hour, Linghan had already grasped the effects and limitations of this formation inside out. The spirit snake could attack and defend like a beast pet, advancing to wound enemies, retreating to guard. However, there was a condition. It could not stray more than 30 meters from the formation. This was a shortcoming, yet it could be easily resolved by simply moving the formation as one moved. Thus, this flaw was not fatal. The natural enemy of formations was the environment. The small heavenly origin spirit snake formation was a water-type formation, so the spirit chi it drew was also of the water element. In places where water spirit chi was sparse, the formation's power would drop drastically. In places where all spirit chi was thin, even switching to other formations would be of no use at all. Why must formations borrow the power of heaven and earth? Without the power of heaven and earth to borrow, they would certainly be ruined. Try one last move, Linghan shouted loudly and said, "Spirit snake, enter." Shoo! The 30-meter-long spirit snake merged into his chest and vanished. Yet Linghan's presence immediately soared, rising to the level of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Formation spirit entering the body can raise battle prowess, and the greater one's normal battle prowess, the greater the extent of the increase. For example, if someone has 1-star battle prowess, and the formation has 10 stars battle prowess, then one would have 10 stars battle prowess. However, if someone has 10 stars battle prowess, Merging with a 10 stars formation would cause the two to overlap, so having 12 stars or 13 stars battle prowess would already be quite decent. This is the same as spirit tools. For people with low battle prowess, using one is like sending coal in the snow. But for people with strong battle prowess, it becomes superfluous. The effects are completely different. Now with formations, how many stars can my battle prowess reach? Ling Han scratched his head. It truly was difficult to measure, because in his previous lifetime, even when he overdosed on pills, he had never once reached 20 stars battle prowess. He really had no idea how to evaluate battle prowess beyond that. Whatever, all I need to know is that I'm strong enough. Ling Han stored away the 7 purple-patterned gold rods. The higher grade the materials used for formations' eyes, the more they could withstand the rampant power of heaven and earth, and the more they could also prevent others from destroying the formation through brute force or weapons. Otherwise, if a formation's eye was destroyed, then the formation would also collapse. He wandered about at random, thinking that although there were no gains for the moment, in 2 more months he would advance into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. At the very least, he could retrieve the crimson-red chilling ice grass, which was the main purpose of this trip. As for the black stone or the heavenly luck stone, those were merely flowers added to embroidery. After walking for a while, he heard light footsteps behind him. Very soon, 2 people emerged from the forest one after another. The one in front was a girl dressed entirely in white, concealed by a white veil, yet clearly beautiful, nearing perfection. Zhu Xuan'er. Behind her was a youngster, but it was not Yao Huiyue. If Yao Huiyue truly appeared here, with his arrogance, he would definitely walk alongside Zhu Xuan'er. He could not possibly follow behind someone. It was Luo Da. "Lady Zhu," Ling Han greeted. Zhu Xuan'er's willowy brows knit slightly. She knew that Ling Han had also come for the crimson-red chilling ice grass, and this made her extremely displeased. Yet spirit medicines in this world bore no labels declaring ownership. Would she drive Ling Han away? Moreover, she had no such right. Therefore, she only returned his greeting with a bow, and then walked off in a showy manner. Luo Da stared at Ling Han coldly. He had never seen Zhu Xuan'er treat a man so modestly. Jealousy burned in him, and he wanted to kill someone on the spot. He had met Zhu Xuan'er by coincidence and at once followed at the goddess's side. Yet Zhu Xuan'er had been unable to find the crimson-red chilling ice grass all this time. Her mood was extremely foul. She had no patience to speak nonsense with him, and he had been given only cold treatment. First, Zhu Xuan'er was as noble as a goddess. Second, her strength was far above his. Even if he wished to fight, he would not be able to defeat her. Yet Zhu Xuan'er treated him coldly, but bowed in respect to a youngster. Once the two were compared, how could he not be furious? Zhu Xuan'er quickly disappeared, and Luo Da followed after her, but before long, Ling Han heard footsteps behind him again. He turned to look and saw Luo Da was rapidly chasing after him. "Boy, stop!" Luo Da shouted loudly. Ling Han did not stop, pretending not to hear. Shu Luo Da leapt out and landed before Ling Han, blocking his path, and said furiously, "You deaf? Didn't you hear me?" "Oh, so you were calling me. I thought it was a dog. Don't you say you really do look alike?" Ling Han said with a smile. Luo Da was startled for a moment, but soon flew into rage. This youngster dared to mock him? He said in a threatening voice, "Are you tired of living? Fine, dogs don't bar the road. Scram." Ling Han flicked his sleeves and waved his hands as though shooing away dust. "Ha! Ha!" Luo Da let out a sinister laugh. The youngsters of today truly embodied the saying, "The ignorant know not fear." Facing a spiritual pedestal tier expert who stood on the prodigy roll, this Ling Han still dared to swagger and sneer. He snorted coldly and said, "I won't bicker with you for the moment." "Tell me, how do you know Fairy Zhu?" When all was said and done, he remained unsettled by Zhu Xuan'er's attitude toward Ling Han. What exactly was the bond between them, that Zhu Xuan'er would treat Ling Han with such respect? "Oh, you mean Xuan'er." Ling Han chuckled roguishly, then began to spout shameless nonsense. "She's the future daughter-in-law of my household. Of course she must pay her respects when she sees me. My Zhu Xuan'er truly understands the 3 obediences and 4 virtues." Luo Da was stunned by that stream of nonsense, then recovered and barked. "Lies." Zhu Xuan'er was a proud disciple of the Half-Moon sect. How could she possibly be some family's future daughter-in-law? Tsk, tsk. You even figured that out. What soaring intelligence! Ling Han deliberately praised him. Luoda's face sank into darkness. This brat dared to toy with him like a monkey? Fire flared in his eyes as he said, "If you still won't explain honestly, don't blame me for being ruthless." He released his spiritual pedestal tear might, which rolled over Ling Han like a surging tide. For a genius like him, a single month was enough for great changes. He had fully stabilized his realm and pushed his cultivation to the late stage of the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. 3 times the strength he had possessed when he fought Shen Zhongcheng. He had limitless room to improve. But no matter how much a 9th layer spiritual ocean tier warrior solidified their realm, there was always a ceiling. The nearer to that ceiling, the harder it was to advance, so within the same span of time, his increase in strength would definitely surpass Shen Zhongcheng's. If he fought Shen Zhongcheng again, he had absolute confidence of victory. Ling Han deliberately hugged his own shoulders and said, "Don't scare me. I'm easily frightened." "Ha ha! You certainly should be trembling, because you're facing Luo Da of the prodigy role." Luo Da declared proudly, satisfied by Ling Han's fear. Ling Han went on, "When I get frightened, I go crazy and love punching people. I don't even know how many have been beaten into kneeling, calling me Grandpa. You're not thinking of calling me Grandpa too, right?" The corner of Luo Da's mouth twitched. He only felt the youngster before him was truly sharp-tongued as he said balefully, "Your mouth is simply courting death." Hey, you're scaring me again," Ling Han said with a grin. "I'm not scaring you. I'm truly going to hit you." Luo Da attacked, stretching out his left hand. Martial intent surged. Hong, brilliance burst forth as though he strode upon divine crimson clouds, his presence fierce and overpowering. Ling Han smiled faintly and curled his right hand into a fist. Just as Luo Da was about to seize him, he suddenly shot out a punch. Peng! A heavy boom rang out as the two of them were both forced several steps back. Ling Han looked shocked and said, "I underestimated you a bit. You actually managed to force me backward. Sigh, one can't be too proud. This must be corrected." Shh. Luo Da was both shocked and furious. Those were words meant for him to say. He was a spiritual pedestal tier warrior. His battle prowess should have completely suppressed Ling Han's spiritual ocean tier. Though he hadn't used full strength or martial arts in that exchange, it was still an attack of a spiritual pedestal tier expert. The crucial point was that Ling Han hadn't even reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, yet he possessed such terrifying battle prowess. He was practically a second Shen Zhongcheng, a genuine monster. On this term's prodigy role, this youngster was definitely a dark horse destined to blaze with brilliance. With that thought, Luo Da's murderous nature instantly surged. There was no need for the prodigy role to gain yet another freak to contend with him. Harboring killing intent toward me? Ling Han shook his head and said, "Well, originally we had no grudges nor grievances, and I would have let it go after beating you up, but you've shown killing intent toward me, so I have no choice but to kill you. That's called not letting myself be taken advantage of." "Kill me?" Luo Da sneered. Even Shen Zhongcheng would definitely not be his match now, let alone Ling Han, who wasn't even at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He drew his weapons, looking rather out of place as a burly man held 2 short swords in his hands. Ling Han casually flicked his hand. Shao, a twig dropped neatly into his palm. He said with a smile, "I'll kill you with this twig." Luo Da was furious. Shen Zhongcheng refused to draw his sword against him, and now Ling Han claimed he would use a twig to kill him. They were looking down on him completely. With strength comes confidence. Ling Han laughed loudly and took the initiative. With one sword strike, shoo shoo, 7 streaks of sword chi erupted. 7 streaks of sword chi! Luo Da cried out, his face full of astonishment. He had only cultivated 6 streaks of sword chi. Die! Luo Da swung his twin swords. Threads of white silk interwove, forming something like a spider web. This was the mystical art he had cultivated, able to turn sword chi into a fishnet. Once it tightened and retracted, its terrifying lethality would explode forth. He had one fewer ray of sword chi, but he held a whole realm's advantage and spirit tools in hand, enough to make up for it. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Ling Han's sword chi struck the fishnet, instantly tearing open a hole, but at the cost of vanishing themselves. They were even. Yet Luo Da's expression only grew uglier and uglier. He clearly held a major realm advantage, and his spirit chi was further amplified by spirit tools, yet the quality of their sword chi was still the same. One had to know. Sword chi's quality was decided by 3 points: one's own power, one's comprehension of the way of the sword, and the medium from which the sword chi was released. He held absolute advantage in power and medium, yet it still ended in a draw. It was obvious how vast the gap was in their comprehension of the sword. "So," Ling Han said with a smile, lifting the branch and slashing toward Luo Da. With origin power infused into it, the twig became as solid as a metal sword. Arrogance and conceit only lead to one's own destruction. Luo Da sneered, sweeping his swords as countless threads intertwined, seeking to trap Ling Han within. Ling Han had no intention of being entangled. His expression turned solemn as he operated the mysterious 3000. Luo Da instantly felt a chill spread through his entire body. The presence Ling Han released reminded him of Yao Hui Yue. When Yao Hui Yue merely raised a finger, sword intent reached the heavens and easily annihilated 2 9th-layer spiritual pedestal tier elites. 2 completely different people, yet the aura they emitted was shockingly similar, making Luo Da's legs go soft. Hong! 276 flashes of sword light rippled out, shooting toward Luo Da. Luo Da clenched his teeth. Shua! 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 He swung his swords while retreating, weaving a tightly knit web of sword chi before him. Pooh! 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 Sword light surged like a storm, and that great web instantly shattered. His weaving speed was nowhere near comparable to the sword light's destructive power. Though 10 flashes were destroyed, there were still over 200 that struck at him. Luo Da roared, blocking with all his strength. Sword light poured over him. Luo Da's body was covered in wounds, but he preserved his life. After all, it was a twig that had unleashed those sword lights. Not only did it fail to reach the count of 800, the lethality was weakened by a great margin as well. Furthermore, Luo Da was a spiritual pedestal tier elite, possessing formidable battle prowess. Thus, he managed a narrow escape in the end.